exit is, quote, good for the country. But we've heard from a lot of Democrats feel like Senator Peter Welch, who told CNN it is regrettable to see Wray go 3 years before his term is up. My political sources joining me here tonight are Democratic Congressman Khanna of California and Michael Singleton, who is a Republican strategist. It's great to have you both here on this very chilly evening. Congressman, let me start with you, though, because what we have seen is all of these Republicans saying, you know, this is great, it's time for him to go. How do you personally feel about Chris Wray saying he's going to leave before Trump takes office?
It's sad because he's an honorable public servant. I got to work with him with the China Select Committee. He was so committed to stopping fentanyl from coming in. He worked in a bipartisan way, and he's someone who put the country first. So I think he should have finished his 10 years.
Michael, what do you say?
I mean, look, I think the president-elect has an obligation, I would argue, to do things a little differently. And a part of doing things differently is to come in with new individuals leading these agencies to deliver on the promises he made to the American people. Now, clearly, we all know his distrust of the FBI, and we've seen, if you look at recent data, that their approval rating is at an all-time low in recent times. And so I think to appoint someone else to move the agency in a different direction to restore that trust among the American people makes all the sense in the world.
But is it manufactured distrust? Because I was just talking to some sources today who were saying actually people who are signing up to be agents is at an all-time high, that over the 7 years the rank and file have viewed it as a less political organization.
Well, you know, I think it depends on one's vantage point. I think if you're a conservative and maybe you're a gun guy, or maybe you're one of those moms during COVID who wanted your kids to still be in school, you may have a different vantage point and perspective on this. I think if you're a person of color, particularly an activist who had experiences with the FBI, maybe doing things that were a bit nefarious, some would argue, you would also probably look at this a bit differently, Kaitlan. And so I think it depends on where you sit, the perch you sit on, I should say. But again, back to my original point, I think if the expectation is that Donald Trump is going to lead and do things differently this time around, you can't do that with the same people.
Speaking of the other people who have been up here, I mean, I was walking around yesterday for some meetings. I saw Kash Patel. I saw Pete Hegseth. It's basically swarming up here with these cabinet hopefuls, meeting with senators, trying to talk to them, convince skeptical ones that they should vote for them. Congressman, I just wonder how you view, you know, Pete Hegseth's situation right now. He met with Todd Young tonight, a senator from Indiana, for over an hour. Todd Young came out of that and said he wasn't ready to say, yes, he is going to back him. Do you think he's still, it's got a few obstacles ahead of him?
I have real concerns. I mean, given the police report and the allegations. Now, obviously, he's innocent until proven guilty, but that doesn't mean that you make him the head of the Defense Department. What message is that sending to young girls, young men across America? I do want to say one thing about the FBI that I hope doesn't get lost. There may be issues about the political investigations. That's not 99% of what the FBI does. There are honest, hardworking agents who put their lives at stake every day to fight sex trafficking, to fight drug trafficking, to fight terrorism. And I just think we should appreciate what that agency does.
It's a lot of ex-military and you know, the rank and file, when you look at them, I was thinking about what Kash Patel has said he wants to do with it, which is send them out into the country and to go fight crime in other cities. But I mean, obviously, that's what local police do.
Police, yeah. I mean, look.
FBI is doing totally different investigations.
First of all, I agree with everything the Congressman said. There are many great agents, and we should acknowledge that and enable them to do their job and do it well. But what I would personally, as a conservative, like to see Kash Patel do at the agency is clean up where necessary. If the critique from conservatives have been to the American people, we don't believe that certain departments or division within the agency writ large are operating in a manner that we believe are functional to prove or give the best results for the American people, then change that. Figure out where those issues are and change them. Figure out how you can restore that trust with the American people again.
Do you think Kash Patel is that person to restore trust?
I think Kash Patel should be given the opportunity, if ultimately confirmed from the U.S. Senate, to do that job. I think that's the only expectation that anyone could have at this point, Kaitlan, because we simply don't know. But I think to cast aspersions this early on, I think it's a bit short-sighted.
We'll see what happens there. I do want to note, Congressman, because I'm going to read this off my phone because Trump just posted it on Truth Social, that for Carrie Lake, she had been, rumored for a job. It wasn't totally clear where he was going to go. And he said he's pleased to announce that she will serve as the next director of Voice in America. And in that position, that she will work closely with the head of the U.S. Agency for Global Media, and that they will ensure that American values of freedom and liberty are broadcast around the world fairly and accurately, unlike the lies spread by the fake news media. That is a Senate-confirmed position, I believe. What do you make of that selection for Kerry?
Of all the places, that's fine. I mean, she wants to go to Voice of America. Here's what I'm really concerned about, and hope they will ask Kash Patel, or if he comes here in the hearings, just don't engage in political retribution. We've got to end that. We've got to end it on either side. I saw Jamie Raskin and Zoe Lofgren in the elevator, and I joked. I said, it's a good day in America. You're still free. I mean, but we can't be joking about these things. We've got to end political prosecutions. Now, I get that the other side may say it happened to President Trump or other folks, but we've got to at some point move on. And I hope whoever the FBI director is will make that commitment.
You know, look, I think the American people expect Donald Trump and Republicans to move on. And by moving on, that means proving results. Results on the economy, results on economic dislocation, results on the cost of living, results as it pertains to cleaning up our immigration crisis, and results of cleaning up the crisis we see across the globe: China, Israel, Iran, Syria, Russia. What are the answers to those problems, Kaitlan? And I think if Donald Trump and this Republican majority can deliver on that, then that is moving on, I would argue, Congressman.
I appreciate you focus on the issues. I hope they'll take your advice on that. Focus on the issues.
FBI Director Michael Singleton, we'll see. Great to have you.
I'd support him. I'd support him.
Bipartisan.